Well, today it's a cold day. The snow's starting to come down and it's a good day to make some soup. So I'm going to make for you today just a very simple basic potato soup. Nothing difficult. It's very, like I say, simple with just a few ingredients that I like to put in it. We used to cook, once a week I would make a potato dinner when I was raising our 4 children. And potato was the star of the show once a week. So potato soup I used to do in different ways. Today I'm going to use some herbs. I've got a little bit of rosemary, a little bit of thyme, and I'm going to put a good amount of parsley, and we're going to just boil these. I'm just taking some nice red potatoes. As you can see, I've got some cut up here, and however many you have, again, it's up to you how many people you're serving. I'm just washed them carefully because I bought them from my local grocery store. And I'm just cutting them in cubes. That doesn't look wanted. And keeping the skins on, again, is something I like to do because you get the nutrition and the fiber from the skins. And if you want to peel them, feel free to peel them. All right, we'll just cube them. And I'm going to, whoops, I'm going to just barely cover them with some fresh water. There we go. So we're going to just cover them like that. And I am going to take, we're going to do a half a sprig of our rosemary. We're going to stick that in along with these few pieces. And I'm going to stick a couple sprigs of thyme. This is your thyme. And if you want to see what it smells like, just rub the herb. Smell your hands. Of course, I had potato on that hand. If you do it with the other dry one, you get a much better feel for what the thyme herb smells like when you're, oh, it's awesome. It's got such a sweet, spicy smell. And when you're in an herb garden, that's a nice way to go and test the herbs. Take your dry fingers, even on the rosemary that I stuck in there, and you just rub it with your 2 fingers, smell it, and you smell that awesome rosemary smell. And that smell is going to go into our potato soup. Then I also have some fresh parsley over here that I have. Just going to run it through a little bit of water. We're going to cut a little bit more. I kind of like to make the parsley more of the flavor in this soup. The other herbs will go nicely together with it too, but I like to make a little bit more heavier on the parsley. Parsley is so good for you too, you know. It's very, very cleansing to the body. We're just going to do a quick chop. Doesn't have to be real fine. There we go. Looks like a lot of parsley. Well, that's because it is. Whoops. But it's going to give our soup a really nice flavor. And then, of course, I hardly ever do anything without butter or oil. And we're going to start out with just a half a stick of butter. And just stick that in there. Come over here to our stove. And we're going to put this on a high heat, and we are going to cover this. Okay, so we're going to bring it to a boil. After it comes to a boil, we want to simmer it down with the cover on. Oh, I don't know, 20 minutes, a half an hour, just enough to those, when you put a knife in those potatoes, they come right out. They're very tender. And then we will finish up the soup to see what other ingredient we put in there. I decided I've got my soup coming to a nice boil, and I thought, usually I put garlic when I make mashed potatoes, and I thought, why not add some fresh garlic to our potato soup? This is going to be a little more flavorful. There we go. And that has just been cooking about 10 minutes, so we're at least halfway there. And I also, over here, I usually scald my milk because we are adding, I'm using half canned milk, half regular milk, 2%. And what I did, I've got a total of 3 cups in here, and if you look really closely now, it's scalded. Now watch when I pick up my spoon. There, do you see all that? That is what you don't want in your potato soup. That skin that comes up, it's probably the fat. What we've done here when we scalded it, I brought it up to very carefully, not quite a boil. A scald is almost a boil. It's about 180 something degrees. You're breaking down the protein in the milk, the enzymes. So that's why we did this as well, to get that out. So when you're cooking, adding the milk to your potato soup, you don't have any of that. It's more of a clear soup. It won't be as thick. But then again, your potatoes have the starch and they have enough thickening power. So we're going to just set this scalded milk aside. And after this has come to a complete simmer where I think it's done, which might be another 10-15 minutes, then we'll come back and see how we do the rest. All right, we've got our potato soup that has been simmering for about 25 minutes. I'm taking out the sprigs of rose, that was the thyme. I'm sorry, the rosemary. This one's the thyme. And I'll tell you what, a nice secret is I could have done, but I didn't this time, take some cheesecloth, and you can put all the herbs, if you want, in the cheesecloth. If you don't like to see herbs in the soup, I, on the other hand, enjoy seeing the herbs in my soup. So what I'm going to do now, as you can see, the herbs are kind of throughout. The parsley, of course, to me that's the main event along with the potato. And I just take my little potato masher and I just am going through and just making a little quick mash. And the purpose of this is so that it kind of thickens it, and we also have still chunks. I don't like a potato soup that is too liquidy or that's all creamy. To me, it's all about chewing in that potato, because that potato, for our family, has a really good memory. When we first got married, we started out in the country. We had our first house. We had huge gardens. And of course, my husband had to put potatoes in. And I'm like, how do you grow potatoes? Well, it was very nice, folks. We lived in a land where we had a lot of good, rich soil. And so when the potatoes grew and it was time to harvest them, was the most exciting time. We'd go out there with a pitchfork carefully, and my husband would just dig in the ground. And all these beautiful red, and we always did the red potatoes. I find them a little sweeter. So we would take the potatoes, and of course in our new home there, we also had a wood burning stove. So we thought, well, let's try wrapping them in foil, stick them in our wood burning stove, which was so enormous and hot. First time, folks, everybody goofs, and we did. We started them on fire. So we thought, okay, we left them in too long. So we did it again. But it was worth the trial and error, because when we took them out with the hot mitts and opened them up and got the butter and piled the butter on, those potatoes were the creamiest, and they were just normal red potatoes. They weren't the Yukon Gold and all the cream. They were so delicious and creamy and tasty. And if you have never tried eating a fresh potato and just baking it in the oven or in your wood burning stove, you got to try it. Anyways, so I like, as you can see, my potato soup is done here as far as the way I'm going to chop anymore. So I'm going to add some more salt. I did add some when it was simmering, I'm sorry. And then we're going to add some of our, remember I scalded the milk earlier. Now if you can see that film in there, that's what scalding does. It takes all that yucky stuff out, so that when I put this in my soup, see, we don't want any of that in our soup. We're going to add this to our soup. It's going to be nice and creamy. And again, here's another little runaway here. We don't want that. We're going to add our milk, our scalded milk. to our soup, and look at that. It gives it that wonderful, yummy color. Look at that. And now I'm going to stick it back on my stove, and we want to bring it up to heat again and to a light simmer, and cover it. I'll probably keep the cover off just a wee bit and let it come to another little slow boil for about another 5 minutes. And you want to just stir carefully. It should not stick, but just being that there is still milk in there, you want to just stir it. And then we'll be ready to serve it. There we go. Here is our potato soup that's been cooking after I put the milk in. I simmered it with the cover off about maybe 5 minutes. Again, you can do however long you want. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that the skins are on. Again, it's what I like. You don't have to. As far as the watery, the liquidness of the soup, if you want a thicker base soup, then what I would do, oh, you know, I forgot to do one other thing. If you want a thicker soup, you can, I use potato starch. I do a couple tablespoons of potato starch. I just stick it in a little ramekin, put some cold water in it, and just stick it in there, drop it in the soup, and it will thicken your soup. You can use cornstarch, you can use flour. I just like the potato starch because it has a nicer texture, I believe, especially if you're doing stir fries. It has that nice clear look to it. So the other thing, if you want to thicken it, you can do that. What we used to do with the kids growing up, I forgot, I usually put a piece of Swiss cheese, there we go, in the bottom of the plate and serve that. Because remember, we had potatoes once a week, and I would make all kinds of things from potatoes. This was just another night of a potato, and I made it into a soup. And of course, everything I use, we add a little bit of Pecorino Romano cheese on top. And then, again, this is more on the liquid side. And it's piping hot. It's delicious. I even got a creamy potato. And you know what? That potato was so creamy. It reminded me of that day when we lived in the country in our first house I told you about, that we baked that potato in our wood-burning stove. It's delicious. And you know, the flavor of all the herbs just come right out. Delicious. A little bit of garlic. So if you'd like my recipe of potato soup, go to my website, memorableFoodDishes.com. Enjoy.